Welcome to Chapter 1. This chapter is exploring geography, and that's exactly what we'll be doing. In the first few slides, I'll be going over the main idea and the essential questions, as well as the objectives you should be able to answer when finished with Chapter 1.1. Section 1 is all about the study of geography and answering the question, what is geography? By the time we're done with Chapter 1.1, you should be able to answer that question in depth. What is geography? The main idea is that geographers use a variety of methods to collect, organize, and analyze information about the world. The way that we'll be studying that main idea is by looking at what geography is, as well as the tools used by geographers, as well as a few concepts. There are four essential questions that accompany this chapter. How do geographers use tools to understand the world? What are the 5 themes of geography? How do geographers identify location, place, and region? And why do geographers study movement and human-environment interaction? Questions 2 through 4 will be handled in part 2 of this PowerPoint in a separate file. On this slide, we're going to answer the question, what is geography, on the most basic level. The original word geography comes from the Greek language, and it's actually 2 separate words. Geo, meaning relating to the earth, and graphy, meaning writing about or describing something. When combined, the literal definition means writing about or describing the earth. The textbook definition of geography, and the one that I want you to be concerned about, is that geography is the study of where people, places, and things are located on the earth and how they relate to each other. A person that studies or handles or works in the field of geography is called a geographer. Here are a list of common geographic tools that geographers use almost on a daily basis or semi-daily basis. The most common one that can be used are maps and globes. The next set are advanced tools such as sonar, satellites, GPS, Global Positioning System, or GIS, Geographic Information Systems. In the next couple of slides, we will be discussing each of these tools in depth so that you get a better familiarization of what they are and what they do. The first basic tool we need to talk about are maps. A map is a 2D representation or a flat representation of the earth. A person that makes maps is called a cartographer. Do not get this confused with a geographer or a person who studies geography or works in the field of geography. A cartographer is a map maker and a different thing. There are several reasons that people use maps, or several good reasons that people use maps, such as they're easily portable, or easily to be carried around, and they can also be drawn to scale. It's going to be very difficult for you to use a world map when trying to show a person around your hometown. You would want to use a much smaller map that is drawn to scale of your hometown. There's mainly one reason not to use a map, and it's called distortion. Distortion is when you place a round object on a flat surface. Got my words mixed up there. So when you place a round object on a flat surface and the corners or edges or the images on that surface get distorted or stretched out. For example, on most maps, Greenland actually appears the same size as Africa, but in real life, Africa is actually 4 times larger than Greenland. Also, another example is that Asia sometimes either appears smaller or bigger than it does in real life, depending on the map you're looking at. There are 3 types of maps that you need to be familiar with. The first one is general reference maps, the second thematic maps, and third navigational maps. In the upcoming slides, we will be discussing each one of these in depth. Map type 1 is a general reference map. It comes in 2 forms, political maps and physical maps. A political map shows the cultural side of geography, such as cities, borders, and political units. If you look at the map shown on the slide, you can see the different countries of Africa as well as several major cities as well as the capitals of these countries. These are all cultural markers on the map or political markers on that map. A physical map or a physical general reference map shows the physical side of geography such as landforms or features, bodies of water, and natural resources. If you will look at the map shown on the slide, you can see the major rivers of Africa, the different ecosystems, as well as some of the mountain ranges visible in Ethiopia all the way down to Mozambique on the eastern coast. All of these show the physical elements of the map. Map type 2 is a thematic map. Thematic maps emphasize specific kinds of information, also known as themes. These thematic maps have themes of information. Themes can be topics such as climate, population density, economic activity, different resources, and the wildlife present in an area. If you look at the map shown on the slide, you will notice that economic activity is displayed in North America. Each color represents a different type of activity in each region in North America. Thematic maps have multiple layers represented by various colors. Because each color represents a different theme or a different object, thematic maps always have a map key. Without a map key, a thematic map is useless. Please remember that. Map type 3 is a navigational maps, also known as navigational charts. These are used by sailors and pilots to navigate their way around the globe, and they usually show depths of waters, coastal regions, air and sea features and hazards, as well as air and water currents. Sailors and pilots use these to navigate their way safely into harbors, safely to airports, as well as managing to stay away from certain types of wildlife that may be endangered and things like that. Our next basic tool is a globe. A globe is the exact opposite of a map. It is a 3D representation, whereas a map is a 2D representation. The good things about using a globe is that it provides a way to view Earth as it travels through space. You notice in the picture that the globe is tilted just like the Earth is on its axis. The other good reason that people use globes is that they have more accurate proportions. Globes do not have the distortion problems that maps do. Some negative reasons or cons to using a globe is that most of them are heavy and they're not very portable. You would get very tired very quickly if you had to carry a globe around all day. Also, it's very hard to see more than one hemisphere at one time if you're trying to study a region on a globe. Our first advanced tool is sonar. Sonar stands for sound, navigation, and ranging. SO means sound, NA, navigation, and R, ranging. The reason that sonar was developed, it was developed to help to detect icebergs so that ships could avoid them. This was happening in the early 1900s. The second reason that sonar was used was to hunt submarines during the World Wars. It became a very effective tool for the militaries of both the Allied and Axis powers in World War II to hunt each other's submarines. Currently, sonar is being used to map the ocean floor. This is the reason, or this is the use that I want you to be familiar with going forward. Mapping the ocean floor and finding resources and wildlife in the oceans. Those are the reasons, or those are the uses that I want you to be familiar with. Our first stop sign. Anytime that you see a stop sign, it's always going to tell you to go watch a video that relates to the information that we just went over. This particular slide is going to tell you to go watch the Sonar Lego Men video. It's a very short clip, a very animated clip that's put together by a YouTube user that will tell you what sonar is, how sonar is used, and exactly the function behind sonar, or the sound waves being used. So go ahead and go down to the description, find the link to this video, and click on it and watch it, and then come back to this. Our next stop sign is another video. This is a more scientific video. It's a bit longer. I will actually break this video down on the next slide for you in case you have a hard time understanding it. But this video is put together by National Geographic Online. It tells you the important uses for sonar. It tells you about the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and how they use sonar. And it tells you more about how they use it to map the ocean floor and to help endangered species. So go ahead and find this video in the description. Pause the slideshow video, go watch the Nat Geo video, and then come back. So here's the video, or here's the slide that breaks down your Nat Geo video. If you remember from the video, they talked about NOAA, or the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. This is the agency that is responsible for using sonar to map the ocean floor, as well as protecting the wildlife off of our coast. Some other things that they use sonar for is to help make more nautical charts, or make more accurate nautical charts or nautical maps. They gather information about the sea life and endangered species, and they tell captains of ships to stay away from certain areas. They don't want people to fish in certain parts of the sea or overfish certain parts of the sea. They also inform divers of the depths of the seas. You don't want to be a diver and not know how far down you have to go, because you might run out of air. So NOAA will actually, as part of their mapping process, figure out the depths of different parts of the seas and report that on their charts, and divers can use it. Some other uses: it can be used to find missing ships, planes, lost cargo, and submarine hunting. Recent studies on the Bermuda Triangle have used sonar to help try and find the missing ships and planes from years ago. Treasure hunters use it to find sunken ships from the 1700s, like sunken Spanish treasure ships, things like that. And then we're still using it for military purpose and submarine hunting if needed. Sonar does not have a negative impact on wildlife, other than it can confuse certain sea mammals like whales, dolphins, or any other sea mammal that uses sonar as a form of communication. If you notice the picture I have here on the slide, it says, "Darling, they're playing our song," and it's the whale talking. And basically what that cartoon is saying is that whales use sonar, and it thinks that, or it thinks the sonar is talking to him or her, and then the submarine. So I think that's a very interesting picture. Our next advanced tool is a satellite. Satellites are a remote sensing technology. What that means is they can be remotely controlled from Earth. Of course, we know satellites orbit the Earth. They aren't used here on the ground. Geographers use what's called the Earth Observing System, or the EOS, which is a collection of satellites controlled by NASA and NOAA. Currently, there are 24 active NASA EOS missions. Satellites gather information about climate, human-environment interaction, impact of natural disasters, as well as land use, agricultural use. They help solve problems associated with climate change, regional planning, and depletion of resources. Anytime that a city government wants to try and expand its city or reallocate resources, they oftentimes use images from satellites to try and figure out where to build things, where to build infrastructure, and things like that. On this picture, you can see some of the NASA and NOAA's EOS. This isn't a complete picture of all 24, but it does show you two important ones, Landsat 8 and Landsat 7. We'll talk about Landsat 8 some more here later. Important ones to maybe keep in mind: Aqua, Terra. Surprisingly, this picture does not show you GOES, which is a weather satellite, but that's an important one. Yeah, but the two most important ones are Landsat 7 and 8, which we'll talk about later. All right, here's our next stop sign video, which means you have to go watch, or stop sign slide, which means you have to go watch a video. The video I want you to watch now is an explanation of what Landsat is. It's a satellite series of missions that were launched in the 70s that are still working. We are currently on Landsat 8. Landsat is used to detect changes on Earth, as well as to detect the consequences of human-environment interaction. Basically, the way that Landsat works is it kind of works of how, or in similar manner of how you would mow your lawn. The satellite rotates the Earth in a pattern, then scoots over a little bit, just how you would keep mowing your grass, and then it will keep rotating, and it takes about 14 months to do the entire rotation of the Earth, and it'll keep doing that over and over and over again so that it can detect changes in the Earth. So go ahead and watch this video, and then come back and we'll talk about GIS. GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, is our next advanced tool. Very simple terms, and the way that you can best remember it is that it's a 3D thematic map. If you can remember from a few slides ago what a thematic map is, it's a map that has a theme to it, or shows you various activities happening in an area. The very complicated definition of GIS is it's a system that lets us visualize, analyze, question, and interpret data to understand relationships, patterns, and trends in the world. The best way I can simplify that for you is that it's a 3D thematic map. If you have a geographic problem that you want to solve, a GIS is going to be the best option for you. Here's our next stop sign. This is a short video. It's an explanation of GIS by Esri Ireland. Esri is a company that has a Geographic Information System program. So go ahead and watch this video. This lady's going to explain to you what GIS is, how GIS has been used in the past, and the future of GIS. So here are several uses for Geographic Information Systems, or GIS. It provides visual representations of data. Can be used to show objects in an area, how land is being used, statistics relating to community, types of land, and buildings. Can be used to view crime, demographics, and urban structure plans. Let's do a scenario real quick. Imagine that you are an owner of a Nike store, and you are planning on expanding into Memphis. Things that you might want to look at before you begin building are crime rate, education levels of the population, population density, land value, and types of land. So we got crime rate, education level, type of land, and density. Sorry, I had to make my list. So before we begin building, I want to look at all these things in order to find the best place to build my store. I don't want to build my store in a high crime area because I don't want to be robbed. I want to make sure that my employees, my future employees, have the adequate education necessary to work at my store. So I want to look at education levels. Then I want to look at the type of land around the city to make sure that I'm not building somewhere that's going to cost me more money, like I have to level off a hill, or I worry about flood zones or anything like that. And then I want to look at population density. I want to make sure that I'm building in an area of the city that has enough people to support my store so that I can make the most money possible. So I go around, I go and find data about the crime rate, maybe at City Hall. I plug all that data into my computer system. Then I go around and I survey neighborhoods and I ask people about their education levels. I put all my survey results into my computer system. Then I go and find maybe a city map, maybe at City Hall, and I look at the different map or types of land available that are for sale. And then I go around and find my density. Probably find that information at City Hall as well, or at the county clerk's office. Plug all that information in to make sure that I'm getting the most bang for my buck. That way I can make the most money in the area that I build in. And then I put all of that information into my computer system. And what it will do is it will generate a 3D map with all of that information on the map. Then I can determine on that map the best place to build my store. I want to find an area that has low crime rate, relatively flat land that's not in a flood zone, somewhere with a lot of people that are mid to highly educated so that I can have good employees. Once I find that area, that's the place I want to build my store, and I use GIS to help me determine that. So that's one way that GIS can be used. If you have any questions about GIS, satellites, or any of the other tools that we talked about, or what geography is, feel free to email me.